Welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon, your compass to carbon management. As always, I'm your host, Deb Ryan. This week, I sat down with Lisa Prusak, CEO and co-founder of Maxari Energy Solutions and managing partner at the Redstone Business Consulting Group. Maxari has a number of different verticals looking at solving supply chain distribution across a number of sectors. For this discussion, Lisa and I focused in on the work they're doing on the energy side, with a focus on renewable energy solutions like wind and solar, and a focus on American jobs and manufacturing. Lisa's framing around the importance of creating American jobs while also providing reliable energy and reducing emissions is a message that I think can really help break down the divide between different sides of the energy and climate debate. Lisa and I also talk about the work Lisa is doing in her role at Redstone, helping companies build people-centric organizations with culture at the core. Finally, Lisa and I are both involved in the Women of Waste group, who are hosting an event as part of Houston Energy and Climate Week in September. I've put a link in the show notes, and if you're in Houston, sign up and come say hi. To make sure you don't miss any new episodes, please like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, sit back and enjoy my conversation with Lisa. Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon. I am joined today by Lisa Prusak. Lisa, how are you?
I'm great, Deb. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm really good. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to sit down and have this conversation. You've got such an interesting past and future with all the stuff you're working on right now. So there's so much for us to talk about. I'm going to sort of start with what you're working on right now. You're the CEO of a company called Maxari. Tell us a little bit about Maxari and what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks. So Maxari Holdings has two companies. Our legacy company, Maxari Solutions, is supply chain and distribution. It's been going around since around 2015 and did a lot of work in the SLED space, the school districts, the higher education, local, sort of like counties, that type of thing, with distributing paper products, janitorial supplies, MRO, these type of products. And then we've added services also, vending, inventory management control, things like that. So that's sort of in the past. And then as Raya, the original founder of that side of the business, and I got together, we wanted to break out into commercial and also add some services and things to our portfolio. So it wasn't just, I need a pencil. Okay, here's a pencil. It was more, how can we help you to figure out, what you're trying to order, what your goals are, what your pain points are, what your spends are, what things are really keeping you up at night, and then what services could we bring to the table? So not just answering like RFPs, but answering them in a way that says, okay, and we can make this better for you. Okay. Yeah. And especially during COVID, we actually were really great at getting things that people otherwise couldn't get, and then supplying them from America and American-made products. So we spent a lot of time during that time, like making relationships with a lot of American manufacturers and then helping them break into the scene. So Maxari really is all about making relationships, and on both sides of our company, I'll talk about the other side in a moment, but on both sides of our company, how do we build a network of people where we can all build business for and with each other to support each other? What does that look like? And then we're selling into the same client. So how do we sell into the same client and delight everyone, right? And so from a services perspective, we've added to our stack IT solutions. And that could be anything from helping a company back into a manufacturer or a Granger or something like that, where they do a punch card, but we make it seamless. They pull it up on their site or whatever and push a couple of buttons, and then they've done their procurement, but in a much easier and more simplistic way. So those type of things Maxari is doing. And then we've got safety, we've got uniforms, we've got PPE, all those things. So from that side, just really diving into that and getting more into, like I said, the commercial space and helping oil and gas companies and energy companies and things like that on that side. And then we had energy under that company for a long time. And we made relationships with all the manufacturers of all of the battery storage solutions and EV charging and so on. And then we said, this is really two separate things. Let's pull energy out and then let's make energy its own, entity. And then let's bring high level people onto that team so that we have subject matter experts on both sides that can do both things. And so we really have some great folks. We've got Joyce Johnson as our chief operating officer for Maxari Solutions. And, Joyce joins us with a million years of experience and just a great person to get to know and help you. Coming from Granger and Line Drive and some other places like that, where she's, just been the queen of everything. And then I've got, we've got Chris Nickley, and on both sides we've got Abul Hassan and Bob Wells rounding out our team from a fractional CFO and CTO perspective. So we're able to again offer really a turnkey solution. With everything just a one-stop shop. So Maxari Energy Solutions, which I'm one of the founders of, and I lead both teams as the CEO. We're a turnkey solution. We're an asset developer, so commercial properties, asset development, and engineering, procurement, and construction firm for the installation of EV charging, battery storage, wind, solar, natural gas generation, looking at how to stand up data centers. And as part of being a part of the Women of Waste, we bring a renewable perspective for everyone. So we're part of a more global network, as you guys are from 1089, to really look at, okay, what are we doing in the space? What are we doing with renewables, green energy? How are we cleaning things up? How are we having innovative, really cool conversations with each person that's involved in our network? And so when somebody comes and says, I'm having difficulty with X, or I'm thinking about Y, or I have a goal for this, we're like, okay, and make the introduction.
I've got someone for you.
If we don't do it, we wanted to make sure we knew somebody that did it and did it the best. And so having you all in our network is really the best of the best, right? Can't ask for better folks. You can't ask for more service-oriented people than the people that we have in our atmosphere in that way. So we're very blessed, and I'm just happy to, figure out what are people asking for, what are their goals, and how can we make it happen.
No, there's it's such a good overview of what you guys are doing, and leading into the energy supply chain piece. On last week's pod, we had Dan Romanito talking about exactly that, right? The challenges of the supply chain side of the data center piece and all of this kind of stuff. But like one of the things that I think for me, as we've been working together and getting to know you a little bit more, like. For me in this, decarbonization energy space, one of the big challenges is finding that thing that we can all work together on and we can find common language around. And your framing of it in terms of American jobs it's not unique, but it's something that I love, that like, it's not something I hear a lot, right? It's often like, okay, well, how do we think about energy supply as well as decarbonization? But your focus on how do we create American jobs that happen to also decarbonize and bring energy security, I think is such an amazing framing around the entire decarbonization conversation, right? Because it gets rid of, it doesn't matter where people are from or where they live or who they are and stuff. And so just talk about that in terms of, I know you guys have done a lot of stuff in terms of, like all these different aspects and on both sides, right? On the renewable side, on the gas side. Talk about what that means to you in terms of, the focus on American jobs.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because really you're focusing on family. Okay. And it's not political. It's not one side or the other, anything like that. And sometimes I think people don't want to say American made because that sounds like we're being, closed off. I don't think that's what it's about. I think it's about, okay, there's a lot of small business people. There's a lot of people that wanted to be innovative. There's a lot of people that said, I have a dream, I have a passion, and I want to see it through. And that's also American made, right? And how our small businesses in the United States actually make up a large portion of who employs everyone. I mean,
Hmm.
yes, we have big companies and, and they're great and they have a place and usually small businesses support them. But it's these small to mid-sized companies that are growing and making things in America and being innovative and everything. But it's really just to support their families and their local communities. And
Yeah.
what can everybody do together to be helpful to each other? So it's really just about that. It's about saying it's really cool to live here in this country and have opportunities where you got a dream, you have an idea, and let's go see if we can make it happen. I want to
Yep.
support that every single day. I want to
Yep.
say, okay, and how can I help you do that?
Yep.
Right?
I mean, it's awesome. Like, talk a little bit about some of the work you're doing, to that end, about
Sure.
the work you're doing in the trade space, like
Mhm.
with veterans, like
Yeah.
with high school students, like like, I think it's really cool. Like, yeah,
Okay.
dive in a little bit.
So then you pull that next layer out, right? And again, the women of waste have talked about it a lot with each other too, because we all have small to mid-sized companies ourselves. And so how do we affect the communities too? Not just are we hiring people and do we have good cultures and all that stuff with our own companies, and are we being of service, of course. Okay, so what's the next layer down? The next layer down says, okay, does everybody have to go to college? At one time,
Yeah.
it was like we've got the trades, we've got things that people are excited about, we've got the kids that love to use their hands and make things and do the things and all of that type of thing. And it's like that in the world, I think in America, it went by the wayside. Everybody's going to go to college. Everybody's going to do whatever. And then, but is that really the passion of somebody? I mean, gosh, I mean, I take my car to get serviced. Like, I want to be able to drive safely down the road. I am absolutely in love with, somebody's going to help me be safe and do that, right? And keep my car
Yeah.
running and all the thing. I mean, that's hugely important. Other trades, electricians, right? You start out as an apprentice. And so we can work with the local community colleges, the high schools and everything to create internships, to create, hey, do you want to spend your summer learning about different places where, you could go and have a trade? What are you interested in? What excites you? I mean, are you adept at something that, then can become something where these trades are small businesses too.
Yeah.
And, they can, and again, we go right back down to making a difference within communities, within families. You're changing the lives of people, which changes generation after generation, right? It makes a huge difference
Yeah.
in communities to individuals and their families. And then it just expands, right? And it just brings so
That's
much
awesome.
opportunity. And so for us to be able to go as a group, a group of companies or our own company and, start to talk about how do we do this? How do we bring this to fruition? We were just in a meeting today about pulling down some warehouse space in two locations, one in Houston and one in outside of San Antonio, to work with the Workforce Commission, to work with the local community colleges, to work with veterans organizations or people who need to be reskilled. They got maybe laid off from one area and they want to be reskilled into another area. So, and what does that look like? And also people with disabilities. And so looking at those and what we call disenfranchised populations and going, okay, look, how can everybody win? How can we all learn what we need to learn and then offer a service or a solution, right? And that's legitimate.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
cool.
It's a needed thing. We're not creating a special thing because we feel sorry for people, right? We're
Yeah.
creating opportunities that people are going to learn and grow and feel, im- impacted and, something I get to go do and have fun, doing it.
That's awesome.
And so we just had conversations. We just looked at warehouse spaces,
Yeah.
to be able to pull down that work and have those, uh, different groups within our community be able to
Yeah.
benefit.
And
And
as I was going to say, as you guys are looking through that whole supply
yeah,
chain, like you framed at the front with
yep,
Maxari,
yep,
whether it's on the energy side or,
yep,
any of that supply chain distribution,
yep,
you would have such good insight
yep,
in terms of where those skills are needed
correct.
everywhere. Like, it's
Yep,
such a cool thing in terms of how you can then help plug people in to a
yes,
point to, like,
yep.
help everybody grow
Yeah, and what do
have,
you want to learn how to do? I mean, is it
yeah,
IT, things? Is it AI things? Is it, from the supply chain side, we're going to get probably contracts from the big suppliers that say, hey, we need you to build kits. We need you to put these kits together, and so we're going to send all the parts that go into this kit. Maybe we're selling a hydration thing right now with Beat the Heat. So Maxari's got a Beat the Heat, pack that is on our supply chain side. It's hot out.
It's hot out. I'm in Denver. I know you're in Houston. It's hot out.
Like, you have a lot of people that are outside all day long. What do they need? They still have to be safe. So they need long sleeves. These are maybe electricians or other workers outside, but they've got to have the long sleeves on. Okay. They got to have the long pants on. Of course, they have the steel toed shoes and so on. It's hot, more hot, et cetera. So we've got to Beat the Heat packet that we put together, right? But that needs to be kitted, right? So it's cooling clothing. Okay. But it's long sleeve, so it's safe, but it's cool. It's the cooling towels, it's the hydration packets, and so on. So those all come into one central location. They're put together per individual employee, and then he or she is safe when they're outside in this heat, going back and forth, spending the day, so on. And then the hydration packets, this really good electrolyte solution, is put together per person and every month and so on. And so we kind of calculate how much time are the crews going to be spending outside, and then we put these things together, and then it just gets delivered over and over and over again, right?
My husband works in solar and stuff, and it's something he talks about, right? Like being on a roof in the summer, putting the solar where it needs to be in the sun is hot. Like, so it's hot. No, that's awesome. Like, I want to pivot a little bit back to the conversation around American made as it relates to renewables and things like that. Because I know, we hear a lot about, cheap solar panels coming out of China and, which is, on one hand, that's great because it drives down costs and stuff. But like, I know you've been working with, American manufacturers of solar panels and of batteries and stuff. Just talk about the evolution of that space and like how you're kind of seeing that evolve and stuff like that. So,
Thanks, Deb. Yeah. So the interesting thing is not just about being American made. It's, and maybe we could say, well, is the quality better? Hope so. I hope we could say that, right? Are things out of China always the worst thing? No, or Taiwan or something. They're not. I mean, we have to be honest about some are. Just depends, right? And so you use your ISO mindset to say, okay, I'm going to figure out what the raw materials were. Where did they come from? How did they get put together? How did they get shipped? Did they get, did they need to be shipped in an air conditioned container, or could they be shipped all the things, right? So you can look at that and say, okay. And so, I mean, we can offset our concern about things coming from outside by doing our due diligence about that. So I don't want to make it like it's all bad or, vilify anything like that. Don't want to do that. Now, it's neat when we can say, like I said, the Made in America deal is like these assets. When a group of people take down an asset and say, like, maybe I want to make a virtual power plant by putting solar and battery in people's homes in certain locations where I'm producing the energy, letting the homeowner utilize some of that, right? Storing it in the battery so you have some resiliency and everything, but then collecting that and strengthening the grid, for our infrastructure by being able to then sell the energy back to the utility companies in those areas. Okay, which strengthens the grid in and of itself, because now we're not just consumers of energy. Now we're participants. So that shifts. That's a shift for the people, right? Because now I'm putting solar, or I'm putting, if I have a big property, maybe wind too, who knows? And I'm being a producer and storer of energy that I'm able to contribute back to, right? And we've got big fintech companies that are pulling down the idea to do this. And what they're trying to see is, okay, I need to be able to keep these assets for 20 years. So I'm going out and I'm raising, funds, and I'm taking down these assets, right? And so they need to be installed, the asset themselves, the battery and the solar, the wind, whatever, needs to be a really high quality, right? Because I want it to last. So I want to make sure that the parts are all good and so on and so forth. And then I want to make sure it's installed properly. And then I want to make sure I have the good relationships with those utility companies, right? And understand the framework that's going on and the infrastructure and the communities that I'm trying to take these things down in. And then really, if you look at it like that, each of those communities then wins too, because now you're not having so many brownouts because you've got
Yeah.
people whose homes are producing energy and giving it back to everyone else.
Yep.
Right.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
that's pretty cool. But why do we want to worry about the quality then of things? And why is it neat that it's made in America? Because we have a different type of standards and so on and so forth. So, again, we're going to check, do the due diligence and so on. But, the quality is higher and we're affecting, change for our families in our local communities. And so we have some solar manufacturers in the United States. We have a wind manufacturer in Oklahoma. And we have my favorite, our battery manufacturer, a company called Alchemy, which is in Houston, Texas. And they've
Oh,
been our friends. I've known the president of the company since 1990.
yeah,
Uh,
wow.
their team is very innovative and fantastic, and they're doing wonderful things. And they're hiring people and affecting change in our local community,
Yeah.
and being very innovative. And what's nice is we can bring a thing, bring an idea and say, okay, we have a customer who is asking this question. Can we do this? And so it's not a round peg in a square hole. He's like, okay, tell me more. What do they need to do? Let's build a solution.
I love that.
And so because they're engineers and they're innovative and, it's right here in your backyard and you're putting all the stuff together, then, it's kind of cool, and it's like,
Yeah.
we don't just have, this yellow pencil. You can have the
Yeah.
color of the rainbow pencil. And if you don't see a pencil you like, we'll make another one, and
I
that's what
love
I
that.
like about it.
Yeah.
It's to be able to say somebody asked a question because they had a goal or they had a need, and nobody really does it that way. And so for
Mm.
us in our group, again, that we have, to be able to say, okay, hang on, let me pull a group together that can have that conversation. Let's all sit
Yeah.
down and get on the whiteboard back here. One of my favorite things to do, draw stuff and come up with something that nobody ever thought about.
Yeah.
And,
And it's a perspective around, to be honest, like I hear so much about the solar stuff of like, well, it's just cheaper to go with Chinese stuff and things like that. But like to your
maybe,
point around your point around the customization of some of this, like it's something I hadn't considered, to be honest, because it's so, as we are building bigger systems and doing different
yeah,
things and the energy demand and landscape is changing,
yeah,
the ability to work with someone that's just down the road, like you said,
yeah,
it's in state for you,
yeah,
in Texas it's
yeah,
phenomenal, right? And
yeah.
it's being able
Pretty
to
fun.
then,
Yeah,
to do that and put those
yeah,
solutions together. To be honest, it's why we went in, this as an engineer, I've said this time and time again, right? Like we
yeah,
figure out solutions, right, to difficult problems. And so,
yeah.
that's a really awesome kind of piece that I hadn't actually considered in the
Yeah, and then
whole
it's really fun
equation.
too because then we can say, "Hey, and you know what? We got buddies that'll tell you about your carbon credit from 1089." And then, by the way, what are you doing? I mean, you have some waste that you got to handle. Is it hazardous waste? Because we're going to
Yeah,
call Emily at Specialty Waste Group, and then, well, if it's in bulk and you got a lot of stuff, maybe we should call Stacy over at Moby Waste and see what
more
she's got
waste.
going on. Or hey, you know
Yeah,
what? There's a whole parking lot out there that's not quite, going like it should. Well, we're going to call Zan from Third Rock and she's going to bring in, an entire parking lot for you in a day. And by the way, you won't have to maintain it because it
yeah,
maintains itself.
that's
We were
amazing,
in we
right?
were in Dallas and I said jokingly, who doesn't want to know about that? Right. And, it almost became our tagline for the couple days we spent together. It's like, well, who wouldn't want that? And it's just all these innovative, really bright people coming together and going,
Figuring
yeah,
out
I can
solutions.
solve that. I can solve that solution. We had a guy call us that they was going to stand up a data center in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And he was like, we don't have a road or whatever. And I was like, no problem.
I
You
got
know,
someone for that.
and I met him on the airplane. This was really funny, Deb. I met this guy on the airplane and he was like, I got to fly out to Texas and I can't get, pieces of equipment out here. I can't get this and I can't get that. I'm like, tell me more. we were on the plane on the runway, and I called one of my ladies that lives in Oklahoma, actually, and she can get a hold of anything. You want fencing, you want a porta potty, you want a temporary office, he needed all that, by the way. And and their project was going to start in less than 2 weeks. And we were on the airplane on the runway, and I go, hang on, before the plane's like,
calls.
let's just call her. And we called her. Well, the plane's, almost taken off. And she got him what he needed in less than a week. And his project went forward. And this is because we sat down and we had a conversation person to person. And we just wanted to know about each other. And he seemed down. And I said, why do you seem so down? And he told me, and I was like, yeah, let's solve that right now. That's the fun part.
I love that. It is. And I mean, to that end,
that you can call.
Yeah.
Right.
To that end, we are all going to be in person in Houston for Energy and Climate Week, so people should come join us. We'll put a link in the show notes for our.
Come on, you can be part of our crew.
Our trashy women conversation as part of Houston Energy and Climate Week. I want to dive in a little bit to the end conversation, right? And particularly because you work across in the energy, and I'm hyper obsessed with energy, as everyone knows, because that's my space. But you work across the whole kind of spectrum. You're in Texas, that is really an end state, and yet it's not always we still seem to be very siloed and stuff like that. Just talk about, you come from a chemicals background, you're the CEO of a chemicals firm, so you understand industry, you understand the renewable side. Just talk about the evolution of the end conversation a little bit as we think about, as we think about where all this energy is going to come for data centers and stuff like that. I'm curious, what you see on the ground in Texas as this conversation evolves.
So what do we know? I think what we know is if it hasn't already passed, I think it's on its way to being passed. I heard some rumblings that data centers now have to support themselves completely with their energy. If I don't know the grandfather clause of if you were already building it, if you could draw from the grid at all. But I'm hearing rumblings at some point it's got to be a standalone. Okay. And so what does that mean? Well, if we could stand up nuclear energy pretty quickly, which you can't, you're talking 7 to 10 years out to get a mini nuclear power plant, and then people are going to be like, well, is that safe? Should I have that in my back? It's that whole thing. And the other thing that everything is vilified, right? You and I talked about, we don't want to be political. It shouldn't be political at all, because what we're talking about is building infrastructure. So I'll back up and talk about what infrastructure has been built. Let's just take the United States over the course of the time that we've been a little country for 250 years, right? Not as long as some other places in the world, right? And for us, it seems like, it's a long time. We didn't have railroads that went from one side of our country to the other, right? So we built railroads, but we built them as part of our infrastructure in our country. We built bridges, we built highways. We built, roads and streets and bridges and all the things. That's also infrastructure. But now when you talk about energy has an infrastructure also. The natural gas pipelines, right, is an infrastructure. Gas stations being everywhere. And how are we going to get those, how are we going to get the gas and the oil and the things from, where they're produced? They're produced here in Houston, Texas, and along the Gulf Coast, right? Louisiana, out to California, and so on and so forth. The steel industry and the metal industry is all up in the northeastern part of the United States a lot, right? And the Ford Motor and all the motor companies were all up in that area, in the Michigan and Detroit and all those places. And then now they're coming down, into the South a little bit. But all of those things needed infrastructure too, right? You can't drive a car if you can't put gasoline in it, and you can't drive on a road, right? Well, now you've got electric vehicles, right? So how is somebody going to drive from Maine to California, if we don't put energy infrastructure in for them? And that is in the way of EV charging, for one, right? That builds the infrastructure. You are increasing the NOI and the IRR of commercial properties when you improve the infrastructure on each of those properties, which along the corridors, right, of I now can buy any kind of car I want and drive it from one place to another without having to worry about, hey, I don't have a place to charge my car or buy gas, or at some point put hydrogen in it, because maybe we'll have hydrogen cars. So for me, it's not really about everybody has to do one thing or another. Everybody has to drive an EV vehicle by 2030. No, everybody has to be able to pick whatever type of transportation they want to pick and be able to have the fuel necessary to use
Yeah.
their car. So capitalism and competition is great in the United States. It should never end. But we need to start treating these things like these are infrastructure builds. It's infrastructure for energy. Now, AI, and we all want to use AI. Everybody's like,
Yep.
ChatGPT, let me ask ChatGPT, let me ask Claude, let me ask this, let me ask that. Well, okay, if you want to ask it, you need a data center to support what it's doing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's infrastructure, but it's an infrastructure in a different way. And so we have to start looking at, like, if we want to have creature comforts, let's say, right? It's way past food, clothing, and shelter into I want to have everything at my fingertips. I want to have quick answers. I want to have all that. But it comes at a price.
Yeah.
We have to have the infrastructure to support these things. And so it's not really political if we look at it like it's just the evolution of how humans are interacting in their environments and the evolution of innovation and how we have to support that together. Now, it has to be done safely. And as anything that's new, just like motor vehicles, just like trains, just like any of the other things that happened when we were building the big dams and all the things to control where the water was going, also infrastructure. When you look at those times in history, everything needed to be made safer for people who were building it and doing it and utilizing it and all the things. So that always has to come top of mind. We don't want to pollute the environment while we're doing it. So we need to be good stewards of our innovation and work together to say, well, if we have to use a lot of water, can we produce the water within a closed environment and recycle it over and over again, where we don't have to draw it from as a natural resource from the environment, from our drinking water and so on and so forth? Can we make it ourselves within the data center that we're building, right? We can, and so how do we do that? And then how do we put that in a closed loop and make that work? Because we need the water for cooling, because you're using all, when you put your servers in the server room in a closet, it's hot in there, isn't it?
It is hot in there. Yeah.
And so they put a little fan in there. They put a whatever. Well, now you take that server room and you multiply it by 100,000.
Yeah.
Right? And think about what kind of heat that's generating.
Yeah.
Right? And so we've got to think about that. So we just got to get a bunch of innovative people to be thinking about that. So then, okay, if I've got to produce my own energy for this data center, am I going to do wind and solar and natural gas and, maybe geothermal?
Yeah.
Right? We got some
big conversations starting to pop up everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do we put all that together so that maybe hydrogen comes into play, right? We don't know. But get a bunch of really smart people in a room and go, how do we not pollute the environment? How do we not hurt the wildlife? Okay. How do we build an infrastructure that is needed for the next, evolution of innovation that we're doing, right? I guess we'll call it the AI age or something, right?
Something. Yeah.
Right. And so how do we do that?
Yeah.
Right. And that's all infrastructure, really, if you think about it. But we need to do it the right way, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And I like the framing around the infrastructure, but it goes back to, again, like not only what you're doing at Maxari, but also the conversation with the Women of Waste group generally. I feel like more and more we're starting to think as industry folks about the whole supply chain, not just what I do, but like how do we also plan and design this a little bit better? Because to your point, like we do have to take into account like what the environment piece is going to look like and what, and all these pieces. So I'm pleased to see that evolution in the conversation, which is great, as part of that. I want to close us out, like you also, because you didn't have enough to do, but you also are part of a group called Redstone. And as part of that, I know you do like business advisory and sort of strategy and things like that. So like thinking about, as companies are thinking about development and strategy and how they're doing it and innovation and stuff, like I'm just really curious generally about like what some of the trends are or some of the really interesting kind of pieces and things you're seeing coming through that. And if there's any like stories you can share, any wisdom you can impart on anybody as people are thinking about doing their own thing or, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. So Redstone Business Consulting Group, I've got two business partners. We've all been in different industries, in businesses, starting up. I have a nonprofit background as well as a
Love that.
for-profit, and everybody's very community minded. And in thinking about a startup company, okay, a company that is stuck somewhere, a company that needs a growth trajectory, or a company that's going, maybe I want to sell within the next 5 years, right?
Yeah.
I've created the Cornerstone framework to take a leadership or ownership team through a process to sort of figure out, okay, what does it mean to be part of this company? Business outcome, we'll identify that, differentiators, all the things. We'll look at, okay, based on 10 years goal that we want to have, what does the foundation of the company need to look like in order to achieve that goal successfully? And what are the career ladders that are going to be in there, and all the different roles and things. And then from a business strategy perspective, we'll start coloring in those boxes, and we'll figure out with our financial guys, okay, when do I need somebody that's strictly overhead, right? To take some of the load off of somebody that's going out and producing more income, versus somebody that can do both, right? Sort of be overhead plus, bringing in some money, or somebody that, what's the balance, right? And how do we color in those boxes as we grow a company, and we enable people to cross train and figure out.
I love that.
Because the trend is I don't stay within a company anymore for 30 years and retire there. And it hurts companies. We need to figure out how to personally and professionally develop folks within our organizations where they don't need to go looking somewhere else, because we are meeting their needs right in our organization, organically helping our organization to grow while we help the individual to grow. That's a big piece. That's a big piece. Okay.
Yeah.
And so with the foundation of business outcome and the business strategy, there's people, right? And what do people do? We got to train them. We gotta grow them personally and professionally. We have to make sure that they understand their role. We have to give them the tools and everything that they need to be successful, right? That's sort of inside of that. And then also, what partners are we going to have, and who are we going to outreach to? And so the three questions that could be asked at that point then by people who work and run these companies at every level is, from a culture perspective, why do I want to work here? Why does somebody want to buy from me, us, collectively? And third, why would somebody want to partner with us?
I like that.
Okay. And if we are hitting all cylinders on all three of those questions, we have a great culture. And we have a really good culture where people are engaged and committed. And so they're going to have less turnover. You're going to have more innovation. You're going to have more people going, this company cares about me. This is my company. I can grow and develop here. They're going to listen to me. I can be innovative. I can bring my great ideas and so on. And everybody wins. Everybody's successful. So that startup company meets its goals to where they're going. The company that's stuck gets unstuck because we start talking differently about our number one resource, which is our people.
Yeah.
Okay. So we get unstuck because we've changed our mindset, right?
Well, and so much of that is culture, right? Like I love that you've got the people at the middle. Like the culture of a company will make or break it. Like that's awesome.
I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we have that, we have that piece of it. And so we've got people that are going to stay. And so that every time somebody leaves, wow, that cost us a lot of money. And what people don't realize is you don't necessarily see it on your P&L because it's not a line item.
Yeah.
So you got to look for it, right? And there's a lot of hidden costs to that revolving door. And if you don't have a growth trajectory, like I call it the career ladder, if you don't have that, you're training your competitions workforce. Because they're going to come in, they're going to spend 12 to 18 months with you. They're going to learn all your secret sauce, and then they're going to go work for your competitor. Right? And
It's
I'm
a
not
great
saying,
framing around that,
yeah, I'm
right?
not
From an
saying they're
executive.
taking your secrets with them. I'm saying they're cheating.
Yeah.
I'm saying you taught them all your good stuff about how to be whatever. And now they're going to get a job in, somewhere else. Okay. And you've just trained, you've
that other company is going to reap the benefits of the training that
and
you
why
put
do you
into
want to
that
do
person.
that? Why do you not want to keep them around, right?
Yeah.
And grow them personally and professionally, so that they feel like I can go over here and I can learn that, and then I can go over there and learn that, and then I can move up, and then and we have to get creative with that. And I always ask people when I'm in the hiring process, I'm the last stop sometimes as the CEO, and I say, Deb, you have everything we need. You check every single box. You've made it through the whole process. You're terrific. We really like you. And but that's selfish. That's one-sided. What's Deb going to do for me? And I hear a lot of people say, yeah, well, I'm going to give Deb a paycheck. Yeah. And then that's a transactional relationship. So what?
Yeah.
So what? I don't want to do that. I want to say to Deb, listen, you do have everything we need, but you need to make sure we have everything you need. So here's my commitment to you.
Yeah.
Here's my commitment to you about our organization. Here's all the career ladders. Here's places where you can go here and train and do all the things. And we want to develop you personally and professionally. So I want to have bigger conversations with you about what your hopes and dreams are, what your goals are for yourself. Okay. Yeah. And then I want to say to you, I'm committed to doing that for and with you, because what my last question for you, Deb, is, can you commit to seeing yourself here 5 to 10 years? Because I'm trying to build a really successful, high-powered team. And if I can't get the longevity of each of my employees, then I can't build the most highly successful, innovative team, because people are going to continuously leave. So by the time I get them trained,
they're out the door.
And so we can't, as an organization, move forward as well or as quickly together as we could if we're all committed to each other. So the last question I would ask in an interview is, Deborah, can you see yourself committing to this organization for that period of time?
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah.
Because it's for me, it's not transactional. I think that really is not very, it doesn't have the long game in mind. Yeah. And it doesn't understand the people that you have and how you develop them and how you listen to them, because they know what they're talking about. They do the job every day. Go ask them a really good question and you're going to be better for it. And I think that's the key for everyone, no matter the size of your organization. Yeah.
And I feel like in particular for small organizations as well, right? Like they don't have the time and the money to replace those people constantly. And yet it sometimes feels like they don't, I feel like small corporations sometimes feel like they don't have the time and money to do that investment. But to your point, like it's so important. And it's, it's such a refreshing view on corporate, because I feel like a lot of that is broken right now. It has become very transactional, and we see all the headlines about, XYZ company laid off 30% of their workforce again and stuff. So it's so refreshing to hear like the people-centric culture and things like that you're working with companies on. It's amazing. So
they're going to have to hire them back. That's one thing. They're going to have to hire them back. And it's a strategy that I feel is a dinosaur strategy for, okay, we're going to lay off X amount of people, probably a lot of people in middle and upper, lower upper management. But what you don't realize is, maybe you're doing that. You're laying these people off and it's affecting your bottom line for your shareholder. Okay. Because you're able to do higher dividends or whatever it is you're going to do. You still need the workforce. Okay. Yeah. And then what happens is now you're hiring, people that aren't as seasoned or skilled. And the people that had all the really good knowledge or whatever, you probably didn't capture that. Right.
Yeah.
Because we typically
We're
don't.
terrible about that.
Typically don't do a good job at that. And so now your think tank just walked out the door. I guarantee you, you're not really saving yourself the kind of money you thought you were saving yourself.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if you develop that in a different way and you look at your people as a big asset to you, and you develop those assets, like you take care of your equipment, you maintain.
Yep.
You maintain your people and you help them grow and you help them keep healthy and all that stuff, you're going to have your organization is going to evolve and grow organically and be innovative and make you more money than if you didn't. And there are case studies of organizations who do it the right way and they're more successful
I love that.
in general. And so I don't know. It's just, yeah, that's the way I think about things. And I want people to think for themselves.
Yeah.
If I ask a question in a room, I want to be the last person that answers because I don't want people to follow me just because, oh, you're
'Cause
smart
you're the
and you're the
CEO.
boss,
Yeah.
you're the boss
Yeah.
or whatever. So I'm going to say whatever I want. I don't want them to say what they think I want them to say. I want them to say what they think because that's why you're here.
Yeah.
And I
And
want them to feel like that.
and fostering that kind of, we've talked about it a lot, right? But that innovative, like sort of curious culture, whether it's, if we can solve some of these big problems through supply chain, through energy development, and through building corporations, like, I think at the end of the day, we'll all be pretty happy about that. So
I think so. I think so. And I think when people feel valued, and the funny thing is, it's not about, people think, oh, the only way to keep people is to pay them more money.
not always.
Money is important. Of course, we have to keep our lights on, pay our bills, take care of our families, but it's not in the top 5 reasons why people feel supported by their organization.
Yeah. Money will not beat bad culture
Yeah.
any day of the week.
Yeah.
So,
And so we have to really think about, like, what conversation are we having? How are we developing our people and how are we helping them to think differently? So
particularly in this time of AI where everyone's paranoid that AI is going to take their job, it's like, no, people are still the engine that's going to run all this and AI will be a tool. But like, I think
people
we've gotten a little
created
bit
AI.
mucky in that. Yeah. Like, anyway.
Somebody created AI to solve some kind of problem and it evolved from there, right?
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Lisa, this has been absolutely fabulous. We've covered
you,
so
Deb.
many different topics. It's been so fun, and I'm so excited I'm going to get to see you in person here in a few weeks
Me too.
down in Houston. But yeah, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Too.